We'll build on this example now to show a few of the more, not really advanced, but just more involved things that you can do with some of the variables. The first thing I want to talk about is operators. So just like in math class, when you had the addition operator, subtraction operator, etc., you have the same thing with variables. So we'll go down here below our last project and just do some basic math. We'll print the values of bucket 1 plus bucket 2. And what you think would happen is exactly what happens. If we save that and run it, we see that we've printed an extra value at the bottom, 70, because bucket 1, 20, plus bucket 2, 50, equals 70. But that's not all we can do. We can obviously do the subtraction, multiplication, division. So subtraction would be the minus sign. Division would be the forward slash. And then multiplication is the asterisk. These all produce expected values. But you can also add strings together. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's say we have another variable called my second string. And we'll set that equal to man I love space. Now if we print the value of my second string plus the value of bucket 4, what do you think is going to be there? Think about it for just a second. Man, I love coffee. And that's because we print the value of my second string, which is man, I love space, which we see here. So that part is my second string. And then we print bucket 4 as well. By adding the two strings together, we make one bigger string. And we can store that in its own value if we want to. So the whole string can be my second string plus bucket 4. And then we can just print the variable whole string, and we get the same results. Now what if instead of coffee, this said 4.56, and we wanted to add those values together, so 4.56 and 3.14. So we do our print bucket 3 plus bucket 4, and run our code. We can't do that because bucket 3 is a float and bucket 4 is a string. You can't add floats and strings together. The interpreter doesn't know how to handle adding a string and a float. Now you can add floats and integers together because they're both numerical based types, right? The interpreter can figure out how to get one and add it to the other. But with strings, it doesn't work that way. So another thing you can do with your variables is called typecasting. And typecasting is just when you convert a variable of one type to another type for operations such as this, right? So if we just type float parentheses in parentheses around our string, that's going to convert our string, which is the string representation of 4.56. Remember, this is not a number. This is a string. A string is a combination of characters and numbers and letters and whatever you want it to be. So this is not a number. numbers are not inside quotes, only strings are inside quotes. Numbers are always outside of quotes. That's the reason this is considered a string, is because it's inside these quotes. So if we convert bucket 4 to a float by typecasting it with this float function, we'll then be able to add the numbers together. Now, what about the other way around? Can we convert bucket 4 to an integer? We cannot do that because it doesn't know how to convert a string with a period in it to an integer, which is supposed to be a whole number. However, we can convert floats to integers. So when we do this, what do you think will happen? Let's add it to a another whole number. We'll just add 1 to it. What do you think is going to happen? Let's clear our output. Run our code. So the answer is 4. So it looks like bucket 3 was rounded down when you converted it to an int, but it may not be that simple. Let's see what happens if it's 3.99. It's still 4. So what happens when you typecast something with more precision to less precision is truncation. All of the things at the end of this 3 get cut off until you're just left with the integer representation. So this 3.99 just becomes 3 when you convert it to an integer. There's no rounding involved. There's a whole math library that you can use to do floors and ceilings and rounding, but when you just typecast, it's going to truncate all of that stuff off the end. Truncate just means remove, just drop it off the end so that 3.99 becomes 3 no matter what. So that's all I've got on typecasting. In the next video, we're going to go over flow control, which is basically how to control the flow of the execution of your program. So everything we've seen so far, the code executes linearly downward. So sequentially, our interpreter evaluated this expression and then this expression and then this expression all the way down one by one until we got to the end. Control flow is going to allow us to evaluate a certain set of statements and then go back and evaluate them again as many times as we want. So, see you there.